Big Ma's Jamaican black pudding that is for big people. In Jamaica, we don't have children and adults. We have picnic and big people. Even the singular, Andrew, is big people. Jamaican black pudding is actually a cake called pudding because of how it is cooked, by steaming in a hot water bath in the oven. This treat is reserved for only 2 occasions. Funny enough, we call it Christmas pudding, but wedding cake. Same recipe. Although it's a traditional recipe, Big Ma's version had a few secret tweaks which made hers exceptional. Big Ma was my maternal grandmother who had come to live with us. She's known on paper as Hyacinth Louise Dustman Wedderburn. Big Ma was a tiny woman, only 5 feet, very pretty, Indian features, narrow shoulders, and wide hips. Inherited. Big Ma woke up every morning with her hair perfectly styled. Or certainly that's how it seemed to me. Never left the house without her makeup. And when she traveled, she wore an elegant silhouette dress cinched at the waist, gloves, and a hat. Big Ma eventually left us to move to America. But before she left, she took out a sheet of stationery paper. And in her neat cursive, fashioned at a time when penmanship was still a subject in schools, she wrote out her recipe and gave it to my mother. From then on, making this pudding became one of the many Christmas traditions that our family faithfully observed. A lot went into making this pudding. 5 fruits, 5 spices, and all 5 children. The scent of those 5 spices, cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves, pimento, vanilla, for me, were as much a part of the smells of Christmas as the scent of pine needles. The 5 fruits, candied peels, raisins, currants, prunes, and maraschino cherries, had been chopped up and put to soak in a blend of port and overproof white rum in a giant barrel jar from the year before. During the year, Mommy used to change the hiding spot of the jar from time to time because whenever we children found it, we would steal some. The 5 children, my sister Monique, me, and my 3 brothers, Michael, Marcel, and Karim, would come running to the kitchen when Mommy summoned us. Where the picnic them? Wanna come? Sha, come take this down for me. That was Daddy's one, but very significant contribution to the whole process. Bringing down the yaba. A yaba is a very large West African clay pottery bowl with hand-carved patterns on the outside and a ceramic glaze on the inside. This was the only time we took down the yaba. And along with the yaba, out came that giant jar of liquor-laced fruit and Big Ma's handwritten recipe. Seeing Big Ma's distinctive handwriting on that stationery brought back wonderful memories of her soft skin and her tender voice and her big, big heart. To me, that recipe looked like a love letter. Recipe in hand, we all got busy, cutting parchment paper, lining tins, sifting ingredients. The 5 of us would take turns creaming the butter and sugar by hand, trying to see who could go the longest before our arms turned to noodles. By the time you add the dry ingredients and the fruit mixture, the batter would get so stiff that it was time to bring in the closer. Mommy would have to take over because we just couldn't go anymore. And the best part of cleanup, we did not get to lick the beaters because we were the beaters. So instead, the 5 of us would go to town on the yaba with our fingers. By the time we were through with it, that bowl looked like it had already been washed. Once the puddings are in the oven, over the next 3 hours, the smell would evolve from that of the raw batter to the aroma of the baked cake, filling the whole house with that sweet, fragrant bouquet of rum, fruits, and spices. It was intoxicating. The smell, yes, but I mean the puddings, literally, because once they come out of the oven, even more port and white rum is poured on them until they are soaked. And that is why toddlers can't have any. Before I emigrated to America, I transcribed Big Ma's recipe so that I could continue to make this treat. Only thing, once I got here, I didn't have to because I had come to where Big Ma was. Only now, instead of those flavors calling to mind Big Ma, they transported me home to Jamaica. 80 years. Year after year, 5 generations looked forward to Big Ma's Jamaican black pudding. In January of 2001, 4 months before she turned 100 years old, Big Ma died. That year for Christmas, I baked 32 Jamaican black puddings for each household of my cousins. Yes, I have 32 cousins. Only thing is, when they opened it at the Christmas party, they were not impressed. To them, it wasn't Big Ma's. I said, look, don't knock it till you try it. I brought one for the party. It's sitting over there. You can cut a piece and taste it. When my cousin Karen tasted it, she recognized it. And when she did, she cried. She said that once Big Ma died, she thought she would never taste that pudding again. It turns out that Big Ma had not shared her recipe with anyone but my mother. Only no one knew of the legacy. In my entire childhood, I do not remember a single Christmas without Big Ma's Jamaican black pudding. And certainly, as a big people, there has not been one. Sadly, we no longer have the recipe in Big Ma's own handwriting. But thankfully, we still have the recipe, and the tradition lives on.